A lot of people have wondered, with the signing of Jameis Winston, are there still moves to be made at the quarterback position for the Giants by Joe Schoen? Adam Schefter of ESPN, I thought he just gave an inside look behind the curtains and revealed what the Giants want to do at QB the rest of the offseason. We're going to break that down in a second, but first, I want to take the pulse of the audience. All of the real ones out there. If you had to pick a starting quarterback for this upcoming season, who would it be? Rodgers, Russ, Jameis? Sound off for me in the comments section. Yo, what's going on, everybody? You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for rolling in as we react to what Adam Schefter had to say on his podcast. I watched it entirely this morning. Go check it out. It's on his YouTube page. Good stuff throughout. But I wanted to focus in on what he had to say about the Giants. Because like myself, I know a lot of people are wondering, what was the purpose of going out and signing Jameis Winston? It's that 2-year deal worth $8 million total. Can be up to $16 million with incentives. Does this mean he's going to be the starting quarterback paired with a rookie quarterback? Does this mean the Giants are out on a guy like Russell Wilson? Does this mean the Giants are out on a guy like Aaron Rodgers? We did a video yesterday on the channel where we told you from people out that cover the NFL, they're not out on Rodgers. But some people that cover the Giants and have for a long time have said they are out on Russ. And I've wondered that myself, and I've gone back and forth as the contract the Giants gave Jameis Winston is kind of backup QB money, which I thought made this quote here from Adam Schefter just add more color to the picture. Saying this, yes, the Giants have signed Tommy DeVito. Yes, they have signed Jameis Winston. And they are still very much in the market for Russell Wilson. And there's been a lot of smoke about Russ and the Giants for quite some time now. We know they had a free agency visit a couple weeks ago at this point. And I have been told, and there's been a lot of sources across the NFL that have said Russell Wilson wants to be a New York Giant. But a lot of people also thought that with the signing of Jameis Winston, that it didn't mean they wanted Russ anymore. Paul Schwartz of the New York Post, has been covering the Giants since 1994, says the Giants inside their building look at Jameis Winston as a better locker room guy and a leader for a young quarterback over Russ. But maybe they want to pair both of them together. Schefter saying this, ultimately, it wouldn't surprise me if Russell Wilson chose the Giants over the Browns and the Steelers. And that kind of lines up with what we know. Russ wants to be a Giant. We have been told here on this program that if the Giants offered Russell Wilson a deal, he would sign it ASAP. And for a lot of reasons. He's wanted to be here for a while. Everyone knows about his wife Sierra and the connections to New York. But at the end of the day, I think the most important reason for Russ is the Giants are probably the only team in the NFL that still have a starting spot open for their quarterback. And Russell Wilson probably looks at the Giants and says, I'm better than Jameis. I'm better than Tommy DeVito. I could be the starting quarterback. There's no guarantee they're going to get one in the NFL draft. And they have a good left tackle in Andrew Thomas. They have a good right tackle in Jermaine Illuminor. They got a superstar receiver in Malik Neighbors. I don't think it's a question of does Russell Wilson want to be a Giant. I think it's do the Giants want Russell Wilson. I can look at one team that had Russ last year, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think they've made it very clear that they would rather have Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. They've gone out and pretty much put a full court press on Aaron Rodgers. 6-hour meeting this past week. And if one team that had a quarterback last year is trying to move off of him to go sign another, I think that tells you everything you want to know about Russ. And I'm not trying to say Russell Wilson had a bad season of anything like that. I want to bring on my guy Jeffrey Cooperstein, who is the producer for Steelers Talk here at Chat Sports. You watched every single Russ game last year, every single snap. Just kind of tell the people from your perspective what you saw from Russ last year.
Yeah, when he first came in, first of all, he missed the first 6 weeks of the season with that calf injury. And when he came in, he started out blazing. They came out 5-1. He was an immediate improvement over Justin Fields, who struggled to grasp the full playbook there, and they were trying to cater as much as they could. Fields did end up going 4-2, but once Russ came in, the offense immediately got more explosive, and they were averaging almost 100 yards more per game with Russ than they were with Fields, and he just was able to move the ball a lot more efficiently down the field. Now, in the latter half of the season, as you see on your screen right now, the Steelers could not move it whatsoever. They went 1-5, including losing their final 5 games and their first round playoff game, and it felt like they just kind of ran out of gas. I do still think Russell Wilson is a starting caliber quarterback in this league, but I don't think he fit with what the Steelers were necessarily trying to do, and I know that he rubbed some people in the Steelers building the wrong way to the point where I think some bridges were burned, and I don't think there's any chance that Russ ends up returning to the Steelers at this point.
Yeah, and Russ had a good start to the season. Then some things fell off, and some people will point towards Coop. The last 5-6 games of the season, George Pickens got hurt.
Yes,
there were injuries on the offensive line. Do you think it was more of that, or do you think that maybe teams got more film on him, got later in the season? It's such a big difference of the first 7 games than the second 7 games.
Yeah, it's certainly a little bit of both. I think the Steelers were kind of limited, especially because their run game wasn't as nearly effective as they needed it to. And with a guy like Russ, you need an effective run game. Najee Harris, he did have 250-plus carries, but at less than 4 yards a carry, they just weren't getting enough out of him. Their offensive line was beat up as well, and they just couldn't stay on the field as an offense enough. And their defense ended up just getting worn down because the time of possession stats were so skewed in favor of the other team. So Russ wasn't able to manage the game as effective as the Steelers needed him to. Obviously, George Pickens getting hurt certainly didn't help things, but it felt like the Steelers just completely ran out of gas there at the end of the season. And when he didn't have Pickens as a weapon to kind of rely on, the Steelers certainly had difficulty moving the ball.
Which you kind of saw their offense shift from a ground and pound team with Justin Fields to they wanted to air it out, and they wanted to throw it deep with Russell Wilson. And you could see some of the stats on screen here. Coop, if the Giants do sign Russ, what can you tell Giants fans that they could be getting in a quarterback?
I think they're going to get who, and we'll show you by the stats here, he was the best deep ball thrower in the league last year, according to the advanced metrics. And when you have a guy like Malik Neighbors who's as dynamic as he is, the Russell Wilson to Malik Neighbors connection could be absolutely dynamic. I couldn't wait to see that if the Giants ended up signing Russ. You're not going to get a guy who's going to wow you and be in the MVP conversation, but I think you are going to get a guy who will be a certain improvement on Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones. If you're getting a middle of the Pat QB in Russ, I think that's a significant improvement for the Giants, and I think he could do enough in order to keep this team in contention. If you get, a second-year upgrade from Tyrone Tracy and you get him continuing his development, you get an upgrade from the offensive line, I do think that Russ as a Giant could absolutely work.
And there's some things you should really like that you see, like the big-time throw percentage. He had the number 1 deep completion percentage in the National Football League last year. His deep PFF grade was number 1 in the NFL. Big-time throw percentage was 3rd. The turnover-worthy plays weren't very high at all. The adjusted completion percentage was there. I don't want to paint the picture that Russ is a bad quarterback. I think the question I'm coming to, Coop, is if you were Joe Schoen and you were Brian Daboll, knowing you're on the hot seat, do you feel comfortable with Russ being that starter if you do miss out on a quarterback at 3?
Given the options, I think so, but he's the best option of a not great crop of options, so to speak. Like, if you're not getting Rodgers, I do think Russ is the best option available. Is he going to save Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's job? I'm not so sure about that. But can he give you a chance to win every week you go out there? I think so, as long as the other components of the offense are there. And I'm just not sure if the Giants have that. Now, they have the playmaker in Malik Neighbors for sure, but they're going to need a big upgrade on that offensive line, and they're going to need Tyrone Tracy or whoever the running back is to make a huge step up.
Yeah, and I think the next question is just what is the price for Russell Wilson? There's been a lot of different reports out there that Russ wants this and Russ wants this, and Russ would be willing to sign for pennies for the New York Giants. Slick Rick, my guy, Pretty Ricky on Twitter, he tweeted out that Russ was willing to sign a contract for 1 year and just $5 million. Then we got Tony Grossi of ESPN Cleveland yesterday saying Wilson is reportedly asking for $20 to $30 million. And that's a major difference. Like, if Russ wants to come play for the Giants at 1 year, $5 million, sign him up. If I need to allocate $20 to $30 million, sign Russell Wilson, I'm just not so sure that I am in love with that idea. And I don't want the Giants to fall into a situation again where they are bidding against themselves to sign a quarterback like they did with Daniel Jones. The Browns aren't giving Russell Wilson $30 million. They don't have that type of money. And the only way the Steelers would give him that money is if Aaron Rodgers signs the Giants or he does retire or signs somebody else. So, again, I don't think Russell Wilson has this strong market out there. But when your GM is told by your owner, obviously the number one issue for us going into the offseason is to find a quarterback of the future, Joe Schoen is going to throw every single dart he can to hope to hit a bullseye with the quarterback position, meaning go out and sign Jameis Winston, give you some insurance there on a cheap contract. Maybe that means also going out and signing Russell Wilson. And maybe that means also drafting a rookie quarterback, because Adam Schefter spoke of the idea of if the Giants do sign Russell Wilson on top of already signing Jameis Winston, he told us that it might not change the Giants draft plans at number 3, and don't be surprised if a quarterback does get selected. We'll read those quotes in a second. First, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We appreciate everybody that always tunes in and shows love. We are on our way to 70,000 subscribers. We are 414 diehard Giants fans away from getting there. So if you want free videos, multiple videos, every single day, and you want to help out another Giants channel here, hit that sub button right now and make sure you're ready to go for week 1 of the NFL season. Chatsports.com/neighbors. Get your jersey today. Guy's going to be catching a lot of touchdowns next year. The question is from who? He'll be there. He'll be playing well. Give him some love. All right, I wanted to go to this Schefter quote where he talked about the Giants going to draft a QB, saying, but despite all of this connection between Russ, the Giants, their curiosity in the veteran signal caller market will not have an impact on their potential interest in drafting a quarterback. More specifically, Shedeur Sanders with the number 3 pick in the NFL draft. They're keeping all their options open, but Shedeur's name keeps coming up for a reason. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. And look, I don't blame Joe Schoen for wanting to turn maybe the worst QB room in the NFL last year into a reliable veteran in Russell Wilson, a strong backup in Jameis Winston, and a rookie quarterback that you can maybe look towards the future and keep your job security up that way in Shedeur Sanders. This is the second time, though, now that Adam Schefter, in a week span, has doubled down on Shedeur and the Giants. And this comes just a month after Schefter saying the thing he was most confident about in the NFL draft was that a quarterback would go number 2 to Cleveland. He is now saying that Cam Ward's going to go number 1. He thinks Abdul Carter goes to the Browns, and the New York Giants are going to draft Shedeur Sanders. And to be honest with you, I don't really see the purpose of having Russ and Jameis Winston and Shedeur Sanders. I get it. Your boss told you to go fix the quarterback position. We're going to just accumulate a lot of people there that I could depend on, so I maybe don't see the season go absolutely off the rails and get fired. But what's the direction there? Like, it's not a big deal that you pay Jameis Winston $4 million a year, but what was the point if you're going to get a quarterback? Maybe you didn't think you'd get a quarterback. You're just trying to cover all your bases. I get that. But I would just rather have Jameis and Shedeur. And Jameis maybe starts the first 2 games of the season, you roll with Shedeur. Like, Russell Wilson, I don't even think gets you in the conversation necessarily to compete for a wild card spot. I'd rather just put the rookie out there in Shedeur and see if he could play and see by the end of the season if he is the quarterback of the future. Still a long way to go in this. Maybe it is Russ, Jameis, and Shedeur. Maybe it's just Jameis and Shedeur. Maybe it's Jameis and Jackson Dart. Maybe it's Jameis and Jalen Milroe. Maybe it's Aaron Rodgers. And maybe you don't draft a quarterback at 3. If these were your quarterbacks, though, Russ, Shedeur, and Jameis, how much confidence when you have in them? Scale from 1 to 100, 1 being you have no confidence, 100 the most in the world. Make sure you are following me on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on IG, @MarshallGreen_. Hit me up, and let's go Big Blue.